Hey, do-badders, welcome to Bad Boy Running. We've already introduced our next guest, and bloody Zencaster, the pile of shit, is already kicking out. And then loaded it, and oh my god, we're trying to get a good system. And so apologies, firstly mainly to Tom actually, because
Oh, don't worry about me.
the first time, but. Anyway, Tom was first recommended to me as a guest by the one from Dan Barrett about 3 years ago when Dan had seen some of his YouTube escapades. I've then been trying to get Tom on for ages, but not very successfully until Dan noticed that Hardest Geezer, the week after we'd been interviewing him, was with Tom doing one of his challenges. He's like, "You've got to get him now. Message Hardest Geezer. So finally, we managed to get him on the podcast. Welcome the wonderful Tom Davies, Geowizard.
Hey. Thanks for having me, gents. I appreciate it. You finally got in touch.
Absolute pleasure. Yeah. Well, the first thing I asked you last time, because I was going on Wikipedia just to see the general things that people said about you, and it was saying that you're famous for being so good at GeoGuessr.
Yeah.
How does one become famous at, I mean, firstly, for anyone at home who doesn't know GeoGuessr, do you want to give us a quick intro? But how does one get famous for that?
Well, I'm famous for it because I somehow became the most popular, the most watched YouTuber for that game, if you can call it a game. For those who don't know, it's a game where you're dropped on Google Street View and you have to figure out where you are using the various clues that you might get, like signs or the direction of the sun or the side of the road that the cars are traveling on and whatnot. I just got quite good at that many years back when I was procrastinating and just had way too many hours in the day when I should have been doing other stuff. And I just kind of saw a gap in the market on YouTube, if you like. Oh, no one's uploaded a perfect score video of this. So I thought, I'll upload that and maybe it'll get some views and, see where we go from there. But yeah, I slowly but surely grew it. And to the point where, I was definitely, well, I probably still am the biggest channel for GeoGuessr, although I have branched out into other things, as you mentioned.
Could it be anywhere in the world? Is it randomized, or is it a bit more selective?
It's randomized if you play the main kind of format, but there are certain countries that aren't on Google Street View. So
North
China
Korea,
might,
guess, yeah.
North Korea might be the most obvious example. But but I should mention I'm by no means the best at it. Maybe at one point I was in the top 100 many years ago, but now it's become so popular recently, partly because of COVID, I think.
Would you? Is it a game where you go out research? Like, would you almost do preparation and do research on different signs in different countries, or would you end up having all these different strategies that people would always be like, we know the rules, the sun's here, or is it very much you're like a detective?
Yeah, I never kind of researched much, which is probably why I'm not anywhere near the best player anymore, because there are guys out there who just know they can look at a bollard and go, "Oh, those bollards are found in southern Serbia," and I'm just like, "What?" Like, I can't learn all of that. It's insane. But yeah, you do naturally pick things up as you play, like registration plates, the sun, the side of the road, and you can kind of narrow it down, the foliage of a place,
Has that ever become useful in real life? Have you ever been
stag do gone wrong or something like that?
Or you wake up hungover somewhere and you're like, right, where am I?
Wait a minute, I'm in Montenegro. No, but I have had people email me. I can tell you a quick story. These guys emailed me. They were from Azerbaijan, and they said, "We're wondering if you can help us. There's footage of some tanks firing missiles into our country from Armenia. We need you to find out where they were where these missiles were fired from." And the way they worded it was, our country's being invaded. It's not right. It's unlawful. And I was like, okay, without really thinking it through, I helped these guys out, and I did find by looking at Google Earth, like the mountains and stuff, I was pretty sure I found the spot. In the end, by the time I got back to them, I think someone else had already found it. But I later found out, have you heard of the band System of a Down?
Yeah.
The rock band. I saw them do a Facebook post, and they're Armenian. So they're from the country that was allegedly firing the rockets. And they were saying that their country is being under attack from Azerbaijan, like the other way around. So I was like, oh shit, maybe I've picked the wrong side here. I don't know. Who do I trust? System of a Down or some random guys? Anyway, the point was you should do some research before you...
I thought you were saying the point was System of a Down are now dead.
They're now tried for war crimes. But no, it was just... I have a few emails like that. Can you find this girl for me? Like, she's in a photo. I'm like, no, mate, you're just trying to stalk her. You know what I mean?
Is that David? Is that how you met David? Was it?
yeah, exactly.
But that's how one of the is it called Hellcat or Tomcat? There's
Bellingcat.
Bellingcat, yeah, that is exactly that. Where they're now one of the main I guess news agencies and also intelligence agencies out there, because they're so good at being able to look at videos and being able to break them down and figure out, especially at the moment with Ukraine and Russia pretending they're not doing things and all that, and that whole business has kind of almost started with those skill set.
Yeah, and they get a lot of child, they get a lot of paedophiles and stuff, leaked photos. And, I've had emails from them. They want me to work for them, but and I do want to do it. It's just finding the time. My schedule is just so busy. And the thing is, when you get into these things, they can take like weeks. It's just a matter of just grafting, just scouring and scouring and scouring. And I'm like a dog with a bone. Like once I get a challenge, I'll just go for weeks and weeks, and it would just take up all my time. So it's unfortunate.
Where did your kind of adventurous spirit come from, or that spirit of just trying to do different things?
My spirit for adventure, I think it's partly something you're born with, I'm pretty sure. But also, when I was young, I would always be out like on my bike exploring. And then when I was a bit older, like 12, 13, 14, me and my stepbrother Greg, who people may have seen on the channel, we used to get so excited by just leaving my mum's house, which was kind of on the edge of the West Midlands urban area. So you've got like fields and countryside to the east and then just urban to the west. And we would just love the idea of just setting off into the fields and seeing how far we could get. Like sometimes we'd go 12, 15 miles and we were like 14, 15, just like trespassing, hopping barbed wire fences, getting chased by farmers, just always being mischievous. But it was just such a thrill. And I think that those adventures, missions as we called them, really paved the way for a lot of the straight line missions and things that I've done in more recent years.
And was there a point with the when you're getting really good at the game and your YouTube was increasing, were you thinking I could generate a career just from playing this game?
Yeah, I mean that's the dream, isn't it? Do something you love doing, that you actually enjoy doing, and make money from it. There was a point, but I wasn't earning too much from just doing GeoGuessr. I think I had about 60,000 subscribers before I did any adventures at all. And then when I did the first adventure, the first straight line mission across Wales, I think after a month of that being released, I was on 300,000. So it jumped up by like 5-fold. And then I was on enough money to actually, survive off it.
Well, before we go into the kind of straight line stuff, because we've never really spoken to anyone who's done the kind of Twitch or the gaming or that type of way into being an influencer. When you're kind of reaching those kind of higher levels of your 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, are you getting approached by a lot of random companies, a lot of random brands?
I get emails quite regularly from. It's always the same sorts of things. It's not a brand like I don't know. For me, example, like a. It's not something I would want to advertise. It's never. You have to go to them. I find
Right.
on Instagram, I think it's probably different, but I don't have Instagram. On YouTube, yeah, it's a lot of raid shadow legends, like pay to play mobile games, which are kind of immoral. It's a lot of Squarespace, Skillshare, NordVPN. It's a lot of stuff like that, and I've just made a decision to. I'm only gonna advertise something if I genuinely believe and love that product, because it actually will tie in. But yeah, you get emails, and it can be quite lucrative, but I think it would come at a cost. I think I'd lose some of my loyal fan base if I started doing those.
And is that do they tend to want to have something that's integrated into what you're doing, or are they quite happy for you to just run an advert, or are they?
They're just these ones I'm talking about. They don't care. They just want as many adverts as on people's channels as they can get. I think if I found a company, I don't know, like Brooks Running Shoes or something, something that ties in with what I'm doing, I think the advert would flow more naturally, and it would benefit both parties, I think.
And when
So
you
I'm all up for that. So if you're listening, hit me an email.
Yeah, we'll have some of that as well. If just Brooks generally, anything like that. When you start getting up to those numbers, because this is something we hear about all the time in terms of influencers, specifically Instagram. Don't really know this about YouTubers, because, like I said, we've never really spoken to many YouTubers at all. But the thing about Instagram is that they're putting out a lot of content, they're creating a lot of stuff, and then at some point in the future they need some kind of big long break away from it, because the content creation is kind of taken over, and they're having to create those things. As a YouTuber, when you start getting those kind of bigger numbers, do you feel under pressure to keep putting content out, or does it not work in the same way? Does do numbers fall if you don't put stuff out? How does it kind of work in terms of your commitment to your subscribers when it gets to that kind of level?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have traditionally, I used to, because GeoGuessr videos, they're not too intensive, that they didn't take me too long to make. I used to at one point whack out 3 videos a week, because they weren't too labor intensive, and that's when I had a full-time job. So I did feel not a pressure to release regularly, but that's what people came to expect. So I'd be disappointing people if I didn't. But in recent years, as I've got into the adventures, they're so labor intensive. Like I'll do a 4-day mission adventure, and it might take me 2 months, sometimes even 3 months to edit it, because I do it all myself. So sometimes, like recently, I've had a month off the channel, and the profit, the money you earn drops a lot.
Really?
It dropped a huge amount, because YouTube will. I'm pretty sure YouTube, the algorithm will stop recommending you if you stop uploading. Right. But if you're uploading a lot and the videos are good, you'll be in everyone's recommended. So it's kind of like you reap what you sow, very much. So if you want to earn lots of money, you just got to work hard, which is kind of a fair system.
Well, though, in a way, it means that, given that you're saying you do 4-day challenges and that takes you 2 months, it changes the nature of the challenges you can do, because you're actually no longer creating content on the basis of what you think is good. If you're going down that route, you have to just create content regularly.
Yeah.
And that's a very different pressure, and a very different, knowing that going into your challenges would potentially limit what you can do.
Yes, that's true. But I've thus far just been living. I've been comfortable money wise for the last 3 years, and my philosophy has been, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to do what I enjoy doing and I'm passionate about doing, because that comes across on screen.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep trying to do adventures that haven't been done before, that perk people's interest. and try and get them to fall in love with adventure as a concept through my narration and all that. And if it takes me a lot of time to make, then that's all right, because luckily I can still do the GeoGuessr videos fairly regularly in between. But it's strange having a channel that has two completely, well, I guess they're kind of linked, but two different things, because there's like an overlap of the fans and sometimes they're at odds with each other, which is quite rare. Yeah.
I was just, when you were saying that, I was thinking, okay, so what you're saying then is to have a successful YouTube channel, it doesn't say much about the quality. It's as long as you've got the volume going into it, which I think we're sorted, David. We've got the volume. We just haven't the quality. We've never been strong on that bit, but as long if that's the algorithm, then let's go with it.
Basically, what I'm saying is you can just upload a pile of crap every week, and that's the winning formula. No, I'm joking, of course.
So when did you first do the straight line, the first challenge? Like how did that come about? I'm sure you've told the story a million times, but
no, it's cool. Yeah, the first straight line mission was 2019, March 2019, and it was in Wales, and I would have been 28 at the time, and I was just yearning for an adventure, and I thought I can take advantage of my YouTube. I can give my YouTube subscribers, take advantage of those 60,000 subscribers, give them something entertaining, but also do something that hasn't been done before. And I was pretty sure it hadn't been done before. And because of all my experience hopping fences in my teens, I knew that I had an inside knowledge of what was possible. I'd been chased by a few farmers in the past, and I know how they react and all this. And yeah, I just went for it, and I didn't know what to expect. It didn't really go fully to plan. I did fail that one, but I did a lot better than I thought I might do. And it was a great experience, and I've been doing them when I can ever since.
And how did you decide like the start point and the end point? Because it would be very easy to almost determine how difficult it was just by deciding those two things and the angle almost of where you're going and looking on a map what you're cutting through. Like, how did you decide something that was going to be a good balance of adventure but also fun?
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of factors to take into account. For those listening who maybe don't fully understand, I've just got to plot a line to answer your question, from the border of England and Wales to the coast of Wales, cutting right across, completely straight line, plot it on a GPS. Well, I plot it on Google Earth, upload it to the GPS, and then I've just got to turn up and follow it. Not to the meter, because the signal is never that good, and a meter is impossible anyway, but to hopefully within 25 meters at most. But that's only if, a farmer's chasing you around his yard or something, extreme. But to answer your question, you really have got to go on Google Earth and really study it. You've got to know what you're looking at. You've got to be able to identify mountains, swamps, obviously things like railway tracks, buildings, farmyards. Avoid as many farms and villages as you can, because you don't want to be trespassing in people's back gardens and stuff, although I have had to do that. Just try and make it. And then the gradients, you can't have a cliff or a really steep mountain, because that's very dangerous. So it's all in the tweaking of the line. There's a lot you can do by tweaking.
So how many, say the first line you drew, how many times did you have to redraw it because you found something that wasn't going to work?
Well, it's a constant. You just put a line down, and you immediately realise that, there's a town. There's a town. I've got to go to the south of this town. So you try that. So you go to the south of the town. Oh, you go, oh no, there's a huge mountain there. Let's try the north of the town. Oh no, there's a lake. Can we kayak across the lake? And you've just got to weigh it all up and find the safest, but also most entertaining route.
And what
Got
was
to get the
the
balance right.
Even
what
the
was
angle of a town, if you think of the angle of a town, when you then change even half a degree,
Yeah.
that then could be 100-mile difference.
Yeah, exactly.
And
So
so
you're dragging both ends around, and you're just tweaking until you get a happy middle ground.
what was the reason that you failed that first one? What did you come up against?
The first one, for a start, there was terrible weather. So within the first 500 meters, I'd say, I came up against this river called the River Tanat, which, if there hadn't been heavy rainfall, I just would have been able to wade across quite easily.
Yeah.
But it was like this 2 or 3 meter deep, raging torrent, which was freezing cold as well, as you can imagine, in March. And I toyed with the idea of swimming across it, but I'm very glad I didn't do that. So I had to just walk round this meander, and then there was this dilapidated old footbridge, which was literally rotting. And I managed to sort of climb across that, which was also quite dangerous. But so weather kind of scuppered that. But I only went 100 meters wide and carried on. In the end, 4 days in, so I did quite well until 4 days in, but I was in the mountains and just, it was getting dark. I was still up in the mountains. I was wringing wet because it had been raining all day. I was verging on hypothermic. And I'd arranged to meet this guy called Joey, a subscriber of mine, on the other side of the mountains. And I had no phone signal. It was bad planning because I had to get down off the mountains because it was dark. And if I'd have stayed up there, he thought I would have died. So, it's a long story, but the long and short of it was poor planning.
And
to get 4 days in, 4 days in, and then just
I know, it was gutting. It was gutting. I've had some bad luck.
So what do you pack then? What did you pack that first time? Because you could obviously pack huge amounts, but the more you carry, the harder it gets.
The more you carry, very much the harder it gets. And the most recent straight line mission that I did, which was Wales Attempt 3 with my brother Ben, proved that, because we got chased by a farmer for about 6 or 7 fields. He was the angriest man you'll ever see in your entire life. I swear to God. We didn't damage any of his property, but he was just furious that we were on his land. And we escaped from him by the skin of our teeth. We had heavy backpacks on, and just marching and running up a hill was just absolutely exhausting. I rolled my ankle shortly after that, actually, because I was just so exhausted. So that kind of ties in with what you're saying. If you carry too much, if I had an extra half a kilo in that bag, he would have caught us. So you have got to pack light. I just pack a lightweight tent, lightweight sleeping bag, a couple of adventure foods. I have stash points along the way. So bags with food and water in every night, so as not to carry it.
Every night? Yeah. So you put those out in advance?
Yeah, stashing is... I learned a couple of these adventures in that stashing is absolutely crucial, because you keep the pack weight down. You spend less time filtering water and stuff. You can just have all the water at your camp. There's a lot of planning that goes into them.
But does that... Because that also then requires you to be able to get to where you can stash, because I assume a lot of these you're not necessarily going to have natural crossovers.
No, that's very true. Yeah, and that's why when I can, I have a support person, which is usually my girlfriend Verity, who just walked in the room. She, when she's available, she will. Like the last mission we did, she was staying in a B&B, and she met us occasionally to take our smelly pants and socks off us and give us fresh ones and charge the batteries and stuff like that.
How does she feel about all of this?
I force her into doing it. No. She's happy to be involved. People comment on my videos saying, "Your poor girlfriend," the things you make her do, but she's happy to be involved. She I wouldn't say she loves it, but she's
supportive. Supportive.
I think, yeah, supportive, but also worried that I'm going to like fall off a cliff. So she wants to be nearby.
There we go. Yeah.
The Grace just came on screen now and slapped you, or like threw a drink over you, or like I'm leaving, or
yeah, it's possible. Yeah.
And say that angry farmer. It sounds like there's been a few of them. What do you think their anger stems from, and how do you typically deal with people who are angry at something? Because I guess you are in the wrong.
Yeah, I will say we have come across 3 or 4 farmers so far, and some of them have actually been really nice, especially in Scotland, where there's more of a right to roam than in England and Wales. Most, I don't want to put a percentage on it, but I'd say 60 or 70% of farmers, they'll say, look, that's all right. I appreciate what you're doing. I like the fact that you're outdoors. However, I'm going to have to show you off my land and you can follow me. It's this way, but they won't be angry. But some farmers, and it's a hard life for them. So I kind of get why they might be angry, but some of them, they're just, there was just no talking to this guy. He was fuming because we'd kind of given him the runaround. Like we'd hopped his fences and he had to drive round, open a gate, drive through, close the gate. And he did that like 5 or 6 times. He wasn't happy. But I think because people ask me, why don't you just ask permission to go through these fields? And I think the answer would be, I think some of them might say, well, you can come down this bit, but I have to be present. But most would say, well, you can't climb over my fence. So, yeah, it is naughty, but I'll grow out of it one day.
And with that first mission, then, like, how was it different to what you were expecting?
Good question. It's just a totally unique experience. What amazes me is, I've been on many hikes, as many of your listeners would have done, through trails, on paths up and down mountains, through forests, but nothing can prepare you for what going in a straight line, not on a path. You're never on a path. Nothing can prepare you for it because you go through a wood. Next time you're on a hike and you're following a path, just look to the left and right of you. You've got stingy nettles, brambles, fallen logs, fallen trees, and you just think, well, I can't go through there. But it's that, like, constantly. So you're constantly battling against, brambles or ferns or hedges, and it's just horrible, to be honest. It's really, sometimes you're just there going, what am I doing? Like, what is this all for? It's just a very unique. Sorry, okay. I was just going to say it's a very unique it's a very unique style of adventure. It's a very tough one.
So do you now have kind of completely covered skin, just so that nothing's going to scratch you, nothing's going to bite you, nothing?
Yeah. Brambles is the thing. I now wear ripstop. I did just wear British Army, ex-Army smock, DPM smock, just off eBay, quite cheap. But that wasn't it wasn't fully waterproof, and I got very cold and wet from wearing them. But they were quite thorn-proof. But now I've spent a bit more money and gone with this company called Arctis, who make military-grade stuff. And it isn't cheap, but it's like really, it's waterproof, it's ripstop, and you can just plow through stinging nettles, brambles, twigs, and they just bounce off. So that is good.
How does it work with things like wildlife? Because when you're on a path, you often run into wildlife. But I imagine even more so when you're not on a path, because that's where they're not expecting humans to be, and a lot of animals are hiding in habitat.
Well, the only missions I've done have been in Britain, so I haven't seen anything that could hurt me. that's kind of partly what scares me about doing them abroad. I did Norway, where I think there was the chance of bears, but I didn't see any animals in Norway. Madly, to be honest, they're pretty scarce. I saw a deer in Scotland, but it just bolted off pretty pronto. So wildlife hasn't been as kind of pleasant as you might expect, even being so off-piste. Yeah.
And what kind of distances are you covering, and how slow does it get when you're truly in the thick of it?
So the mission across Wales expeditions have been anywhere between 32 and 38 miles, because it doesn't sound very far, but it's as the crow flies, it's surprisingly narrow, Wales, when you just popping out at an estuary. Scotland, I think, was 38, although I only got halfway through that. Norway was 18 miles. The shortest day I ever did, and this was a full day, me and Greg did 5 miles, because it was just, as I said, just forests, gorse, brambles, farmers. Like sometimes we get to a farm and there's a tractor mulling about, so we have to just hide for a while, and wait till he's gone. Just things can slow you down.
And when it comes to filming, how do you decide what is good to tell, and how do you decide? Because say, for example, that bridge you were trying to cross, where it's obviously an incredible footage, but then also you need to be filming, so you need to be climbing, you need to be concentrating. Like, how do you do that well?
Yeah. So I have a GoPro, which is firmly on my head when I'm doing anything where I need both hands. Funnily enough, though, it's funny you mentioned that bridge, because I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before publicly, but I crossed that bridge, which was scary. Like if I'd have fallen in, I think I would have drowned, because I had my boots on, my bag on and everything. I crossed this bridge kind of by hanging on those wires, got to the other side and realised that my GoPro, because it was on my head, hadn't filmed any of it. So I had to. So I thought, fuck that. Sorry if you don't have swearing. So I thought, screw that.
Yeah, that's fine.
I've got to go back and film it this time. So I climbed back over, actually made sure the camera was on, and then came over again.
and then you're so close to completing that first mission, but frustratingly didn't. Was there a chance that could have been it for the straight line challenges?
No, I was hell bent on doing them again, partly because it was so popular. I mean, that was recommended to everyone, that video. I had many people saying, my work colleague has watched your video and so. That got millions of views, which was more than I ever could have hoped for in my wildest dreams. So it was partly the popularity, but also I really enjoy. Well, I mean, they're horrible when you're doing them, but I'm sure you can relate. It's the same with running. They're horrible when you're in the thick of the run, but it's afterwards. It's that feeling, the feelings you get from putting yourself in such horrible situations is twistedly addictive. And I was keen to do a successful one, very much so.
And from those first videos of that challenge, like, what did you kind of learn about the audience that they wanted to see?
It's a good question. I think by and large it was more positive than I thought it would be, because YouTube comments can be a dark place. I think people were just lapping up the originality of it, and I did put a lot of. I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to the editing. It takes me an age to do, because I'm trialing and erroring. I'm trying different ideas with the editing, but I know how I want it to look. So I think people appreciated the care that I put into the editing, the narration and all that. And I think it made it quite comfortable for them to watch. So, but then on the other side, you do always get the hate. You shouldn't be trespassing. You shouldn't be damaging people's property. You've got to take the rough with the smooth.
And do you think that hate comes from just angry people, or do you think there is genuine concern, or do you think it's people who are affected by people like yourself?
I think a mixture. I think obviously there's always the angry people on YouTube who will take objection to anything you do. But like, for example, me and Greg we attempted a mission across Scotland technically it was during lockdown, which a lot of people objected to. But I think, so in that, people have their opinions, and that's fine. And if they've got a good point, I will always take it on board. If I feel like they're just being, if I read it and go, I disagree, then I'm pretty at peace with that. I just stick by my own. If I disagree, I disagree. But if they've got a point, I'll take it on board.
So challenge 2 then, how did that differ in your approach and what you're trying to achieve?
Are you referring to the second straight line mission? Yeah. Me and Greg, my stepbrother, my old partner in adventure from all those early countryside missions. It was really exciting to do one with him. It was going great. It was planned quite well. We were on course for a gold run, which is furthest deviation is within 50 meters. But sadly, Greg fell kind of ill. He's not diabetic, but he's got a similar thing. It's nothing too serious. It's called Addison's, and he had like the equivalent of a diabetic, what would you call it, crisis, in a scary place to have it. Actually, a really, really remote kind of wooded gorge where like you're like an hour from any sort of road. So we had to just leave the line. His safety came first, and we had to leave the line. So that's how that one ended. So was a bit of bad luck there. The third one I did was Norway, which was a success. You'd think Norway would be really mountainous, but I picked a good line there. Scotland police stopped us halfway through because a farmer called the police on us because we were during lockdown, and they sent us piss off back to England, which is fair enough. And the most recent
the police
one
actually did stop that attempt. Yeah,
me and Greg somewhat foolishly camped on some land that I thought was completely out of view from farmers or anything. But this farmer's wife happened to walk the dogs, and she saw us, and she said hello and waved and was very nice. And then she went back down. And then an hour or so later, the farmer came up on his quad bike and said, "What the hell are you doing? There's a lockdown." And we were like, "Oh, we're sorry." We explained what we were doing. And he said, "Look, that's all right. You can stay here for the night, but just make sure you go first thing in the morning." We said, "Okay, that's very nice of you. Thank you, thank you." An hour later, when it was pitch black, we saw some torches coming up, and we didn't even consider it might be the police. We thought the farmer's coming back up. He's had a change of heart. He's brought his boys up or something. And only when they were right next to us, we saw that it was the police. And so he'd gone in.
Were you filming this to try and...
I did film it, yeah. You can't see a lot because it's dark, but I don't know why he did that to this day. He must have wanted us to stay there so he could dob us in. But the police, they were quite irate at first that we had the audacity to be gallivanting around Scotland during a lockdown, which I get. But after that, they warmed to us and just said, "Look, if you go home, we won't take you to court." Nicola Sturgeon's court. Yeah.
It does amaze me though that in the flesh, people are genuinely angry. I can understand farmers if you're disrupting their business or causing havoc on their farm, but otherwise, it just seems to be almost that kind of quintessentially Victorian British style, wacky, attempted, the type of thing that seems very, very British and admirable and fun and like,
Yeah. Most people are very nice, I have to say.
And so then, what was the first success then?
That was the Norway one. Partly because it's not possible to trespass in Norway. It was just even if you're in someone's back garden, it's not illegal, which is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, there's like this. I mean, maybe technically they could have you removed, but they don't. You can walk through someone's garden and they won't come out and tell you off. Not that there were many gardens; it was mainly wilderness. That was a great one. It was just so wild. It was up by the Arctic Circle, so it was only dark for like 2 hours, and it was just such a mystical place full of berries and mushrooms and amazing plants. And yeah, that was really cool.
Partake in any mushrooms?
On the one day, that's all I did. No, I didn't dare eat any mushrooms.
And at the end of that, did it feel like, was it really joyful to have success, or was it almost disappointing that you'd be like, oh right, we've done it now?
Oh, there's always that feeling, isn't there? When you do something you've been working towards, it's like, oh, the journey's over. I feel kind of, but overall, it was because they're so grueling. Sometimes they're so frustrating, as I was saying earlier, all the foliage, and it's just like it was a real weight off my shoulders. That was because also you've got to factor in my YouTube audience. They've seen me fail twice now at this point. If I failed a third time, a lot of them might just go, this guy, I'm going to watch someone else who can actually achieve what he sets out to do. So that was probably the best feeling about it was like, yes, I've actually achieved, there's a record under my name now. I've been the first person to do this. Now I can just, there's some pressure lifted off my shoulders.
And did you feel like, was the response from your audience at the achievement what you expected?
I can't really remember. I think, they were, as I say, they're usually so positive anyway. And that they always tell me they don't mind if I fail. They just like watching the journey. But I think, they were very stoked for me. Yeah, I guess. I think so.
And kind of physically, how draining is it on you compared to something like walking? Is it very different because you're having to crawl through almost?
Yeah, it can be insanely energy zapping. I mean, if you're a really fit hiker, you'll be okay. But so imagine you walking. One of the most energy zapping things, say if you were to attempt Wales or Scotland or something, you have those the moors. You know when you're up in the moors and it's like marshy sort of tufty grass. It's just miles and miles of that. When you're going over the hills or the mountains, it's just miles of that bracken and moss and heather, and it's just so energy zapping because you're not on a path, so it's just all higgledy-piggledy. It's like real ankle roll territory. So you really can, even if you were to go as fast as you possibly could, you'd only do like 15 miles in a day. And that's going up and down hills. That's if you're really fit. And like when you're going up a steep hill, I really took for granted what a path was. A path being a flat section that's like chiseled out of the hillside. As soon as you go on something that hasn't got a path, your right foot is, say if it's sloping up to the right, your right foot is doing all the work and your left foot is just hanging in the air. And so it's ruining your right foot. All your skin is just being pulled to the side. Your right leg is the one that's doing all the work. And it's just like, it's after a while, you're just burning up. Yeah, it's very difficult.
And so when did you decide to try the dribbling across?
It was sometime last year that I decided to do that. Don't ask how I came up with it. I love playing football and I love challenges. And the idea just came to me. I wonder if I can dribble a football across Britain. That seemed like the obvious thing because it's got a good ring to it. It sounds good. Probably sounds better than it is. And it's like
you started in the right point. You started at the right point. Does it sound good? Because I think that's the key to any challenge, isn't it? It's like, does this sound good?
Yeah, like, is it going to impress people? Does it stick in people's heads? Like, oh, this guy swam across the channel. Everyone can relate to it. Everyone knows what that distance is.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, oh, I swam from Shrewsbury to Worcester along the River Severn. No one will know what that distance is. So there was an element of that, but just the right amount of distance, about 75 miles, to make me question whether it was actually doable to do it in 24 hours. And I should say, I'm not going to give away whether I did succeed in under 24 hours because obviously it's been released tomorrow, so I won't ruin the surprise.
And how do you kind of set rules to yourself to try and firstly make it harder, but also actually make it achievable?
Well, in this case, you're right. I do set rules. I think you've got to have rules, otherwise things can get out of hand. In this case, it was quite straightforward. Kick a football from Carlisle to Newcastle, coast to coast. One of the rules I had was no one else can touch. If someone else kicks the ball and it goes forward, we have to take the ball back to before the point that they kicked it. I think it glanced off the cameraman's leg at one point. Little things like that, but mainly it was just, don't cheat, don't pick up the ball, just kick it the whole way.
How did you define a dribble? Like, did it have to stay within a certain distance of your foot the whole, to class it as a dribble, rather than hoofing it as hard as you can? And it's technically dribbling.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I am worried that's the thing that I'm worried most about from the comments is people who are going to say, well, you weren't dribbling it, you were just hoofing it. My answer is, at times you have to dribble it when the path is as such that the ball could roll into a ditch or roll down a hill. You have to keep it by you.
Yeah.
Which really does. Have you guys done ultra marathons, like really long runs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll know then that the key to doing those, completing those, or at least comfortably, is getting into a rhythm, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Just zoning out, finding your rhythm. That's how you eat up the miles. And the first time I took the ball out was along the canal. I did an 8-mile run along a narrow canal towpath and around where I live. And it was mentally exhausting because the ball, it was like every other step I had to lunge my foot out and stop the ball going in either the canal or the bush.
Yeah.
And honestly, by the end of it, I was like, I can't do that for 70 miles. No way. So, but mercifully, the paths, obviously when you get off the canal, the paths can be a lot more favourable where you can kick the ball a bit further. But it's about getting the balance. You don't want to hoof it too far because it's susceptible to rolling into bushes. And so you've just got to kind of do medium-sized strokes, really.
And are you good at football?
If you'll ask my mates, they'll tell you I'm not a particularly great player in a match situation. I'm quite small. I'm not that strong. And I'm not very...
I like the way you've defined that. Not in a match situation. What other situation? What, you're brilliant if there's no one else playing?
Basically, yeah. Basically, if you put me in front of a goal or you stand me on a field, I can pass the ball to someone really accurately and I've got a good touch and I've got a good shot. I can volley a ball quite well. But in a match situation, when I'm under pressure and there's lots of players stampeding towards me, I kind of lose my cool a bit. So I'm not that... My composure in a match situation isn't that good, but I've got a good touch and a good pass, which I knew they'd be important, but I didn't realise just how important they would be because You got to judge the land ahead of you.
Because
And-
it's not just
Yeah.
that, is it? If you're hoofing the ball in front of you, and there's ever a possibility that there are people there at any point,
Yeah.
it's the serious danger that someone else is going to come and hoof it, because it's a
Yeah.
natural thing to want to do when you see a ball. Oh, look, there's a ball. I'm going to hoof it as hard as I can, regardless of whose it is
Yeah.
or what it is. And so, did you ever come up with that, or are you just very careful to stay away from people as much as possible?
Or even the rudeness of not passing to someone if there's a kid
Yeah.
there, or if there's someone who's like,
Oh yeah, like kid goes to play and you're just like,
yeah.
get out! I'm on a challenge.
Yeah. I love kicking ball. When I'm on a park and a ball comes anywhere near me, I love kicking it back to whoever it is. It's one of my favourite things to do, along with giving directions. But yeah, luckily there weren't too many people on the path. There was one point where we were kicking it down this nice path, and two big dogs came bounding towards us. I don't know what they were. They were big, shaggy-looking dogs, and I had to get the ball under my foot and go no. But they wanted to bite the ball. You could tell they were. So dogs was a bigger threat, because they would actually pop the ball easily, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
And would you have tried to continue with a popped ball?
No, we had some spares in the van, in the support van, and we figured, like, because a ball could get popped in a blackthorn bush, it could get popped by brambles. So we figured, look, if a ball gets popped, it's not necessarily kick one football across Britain. It's kick a football across Britain, not kick a football across Britain. So we figured if it gets popped, we'll just get a spare ball, make sure it's behind that point, and it's not about that. It's just about doing it.
They're not going to like that on YouTube.
I know. Well, that's the thing, and I know. No, but you're right. People will always find something to moan at.
Yeah, that's it. The gotcha crew.
Yeah,
did you
I've stopped
train?
listening.
Did you train for this then? Did you have, because I imagine it's things like core stability are super important, and just some muscles you'd never expect.
Yes, this is one thing I've never trained so hard for anything. I wanted to smash it. Well, for a start, doing it in 24 hours, I knew that I would have to. There's no way you're doing that unless you train for that. So I did a lot of running to begin with. I did a lot of half marathons off road. I took the ball out a few times, but once you've done that once, you've kind of done it. You don't really need to do
I
that
love
much.
you took a ball to a half marathon. What would they have been saying? Just drop that at the start line.
Look, take it to park run every week. No, I took it on quiet paths, don't worry. I did a lot of running. I did a lot of half marathons, and then I realised, wait a minute, I'm going to be walking probably 2/3 of the time. I'm not going to be running the whole thing. So I need to make sure I can walk 70 miles first and foremost, because I think in that last 20 or 30 miles, if I haven't walked more than 30 miles to prepare for this, my legs are going to be not very conditioned. So I made sure I did a 30-mile hike in Wales in the hills. I did a 40-mile hike in the Peak District, walking uphill and running downhill. I did like 4 of those, and then after that, I felt like I was pretty ready.
And I mean, how close were you? Well, you can't say the time if you finished or not. Like, how were you constantly having to look at the clock? Was time a real pressure?
Yeah. I won't give too much away, but yeah, we were. There were points where we thought we were not going to do it. There were points where we were looking like we were behind schedule. And wait, that does give quite a lot away, doesn't it? Yeah, there were points where we didn't think we'd make it, but in the end, I can confirm that we did do it in the 24 hours.
Yay!
Hey! Oh, that's a nice twist to the podcast, isn't it?
When you said that you didn't think you were going to make it, what for what reason? What, you were getting behind on time, or what were those moments?
Well, there was a moment when we'd done the first marathon, which was mainly uphill.
Yeah.
So we'd walked most of that, and like it's a bit of a silly story, but I got a figure wrong, and I thought what we basically thought had happened was we'd walked 3 miles more than the route actually was,
right?
Just by zigzagging and doing U-turns, going the wrong way occasionally. So we were like, shit, we've done 3 miles more than what we should have done. So if we project that on, that's 10 miles over the whole thing. So we've got an extra 10 miles to do, and we're behind on time. But that wasn't actually the case. We were only a mile out, which over the whole thing extrapolated was 3 miles added on. But at that point, we thought we were well and truly behind. But you also never know, because the last marathon is always going to be slower, isn't it?
Yeah.
But in the end, it was all good.
And do you think it's going to give you a new audience? Because as soon as you put a football in something, suddenly,
that's it.
It's a global appeal.
That's what I'm hoping. Yeah, I'm really hoping that definitely in Britain and Europe, there's going to be a lot of guys who aren't necessarily interested in adventures or certainly GeoGuessr, but they like football, so they click on that. That's what I'm hoping. I'm really hoping that doubly so this time, because we're raising money for charity. It's the first time I've ever raised money for charity on my channel. So if this can get out to a wider audience, that would be incredible, because that means more donations to Calm and the other two charities. So that would be awesome.
And if people want to donate, what's the best way for them to find that page?
Oh, simply go on the description and the link will be there to the Just Giving page. There's Calm. There's the running charity. I don't know if you have talked about them.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, we know them pretty well. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, that looks fantastic. Obviously, Russ works closely with them. Yeah. And then the last one is the James Brindley Foundation, which is more of a local charity that's close to my heart, which is knife crime, tackling knife crime. So, yeah, but going back to what you said, yeah, I'm really hoping it opens up a new audience. That would be great.
And which of the two, because you've done far more direct lines, as you've got straight lines, you've got the football one now. Do you have an instinct of which one did you prefer doing of the two styles? And do you think you'll ever combine the two, or are you going to be heading more into like different types of challenges in the future?
I think combining the two, that we did joke about that, doing a straight line mission with a football. I don't know. You'll have to. I'll have to let that one brew a little while. I don't know about that, but yeah, never say never. I'm definitely going to do more straight line missions while I'm still young, and while it's, there will come a point where I'll feel a bit stupid going in people's back gardens when I'm a certain age, but for now, I'm really enjoying them. They are harder than the ultra marathon with a ball. There's no doubt. It was hard. It was an absolute slog. It was really, really grueling. It felt never ending at times. But in terms of morale, because I had a great bunch of guys with me, like Russ, for example. He's just, he just exudes vibes. And so because it was a 24-day thing, and we knew 24-hour thing, we knew it would be over at some point in the near future. Morale never really dropped that much. Yeah. With a straight line mission, it's like sometimes they can take up to 5 days. I've got one planned that will take longer than 5 days, and its morale can be so low because you're wet, you're camping out in a forest, you're on your own. You're cold, you're miserable. They do not compare in terms of morale and toughness in that sense.
Yeah.
But maybe as a physical feat, the ball thing was harder. I don't know.
And do you think you'd try a kind of 4 or 5 ball thing, or would that be physically?
Yes,
really?
I think I would. Me and Russ were talking semi-jokingly, but I don't think he was joking at all because he's a madman. Dribbling a football between every single Premier League stadium.
Do you know what you would do?
England.
As we were talking about this, I was thinking, imagine if you were dribbling a ball between every stadium. Like it seems the obvious thing to do.
I know.
It's
It does, doesn't it?
It's like it has to be done.
Yeah, I think it might have to be done. I need to look at how far that is, because that's got to be.
It has been
pushing on
before.
1,000 miles.
It has
been run before, but then it changes every year, so it's always going to be slightly different.
That's true. Yeah, we'll have to wait for I don't know, Newcastle to be relegated.
Yeah. So you've got to get because you know that you've got to go Newcastle and all the way down to Brighton, and so you're going the length of the country. That's it.
Yeah, you basically want as many London teams in there as possible, which I don't really want. But you just want to do QPR, Crystal Palace, Charlton Athletic, Chelsea, Arsenal.
Yeah.
But that would be a bit silly, wouldn't it? Just running around London with a football.
And you mentioned about the low moments. Like, what would you say was the lowest moment you've had on one of your adventures?
For me, I get quite lonely and a little bit sad when I'm out there camping on my own in a dark, unforgiving, remote, cold, wet forest. I don't know if that's something you guys ever do. Camping out. It's I don't know. It's lonesome, and those are my low points. I think I must feed off other people a lot because those are my low points when I'm on my own. That is partly why I've tried to do it with Greg, Ben. Since the only one I did on my own was Norway and the first Wales one. But those are the low points for me. Yeah, just being cold and wet, not even being able to make a fire because all the wood is wet on the floor, and just having to push through the night on your own. But what I will say to counteract that is the next day when you wake up and the sun comes out and you're doing it, you're on the move again. That is a level of high.
Yeah.
Having been through that low, that's a level of kind of contentness and pride in oneself that I've never matched. So I think that goes across the board, doesn't it? If you go through a low, the highs are all the more pronounced.
And where would be your dream location if you could? Because obviously places like America, just be gun laws and things like that. Would be too difficult. But if you were able to almost remove certain elements that would stop you of going anywhere in the world, like where do you think would be your ideal place to do it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I don't suppose. Sorry to give a boring answer. I don't think that there would be one particular place. I think anywhere that's beautiful and has a different landscape to what we're used to. Although, as it happens, Britain is a great landscape to do it in, I find. Nothing that can really hurt you. And I think, just a beautiful, interesting landscape. Like when I went to Norway, it was the foliage and the landscape. I'd never seen anything like it. So it was like being in The Hobbit. It was like being in the Shire, you know. So anywhere that's new,
Because someone like Japan could be really cool because
I've looked at Japan, yeah.
Familiar in terms of temperatures, but actually, I can't imagine there's many. I don't think there's many things that can kill you in Japan. But you'd imagine the
exploding nuclear power plants, tsunamis.
Yeah,
true. Quite a few.
No, Japan looks really. It's very mountainous. That's all. Big mountain ranges are a bit of a no-no because I'm not really a climber. I don't know how to use ropes. But Japan it is possible to do it in Japan, but apparently they're also quite strict law-wise. So if you were caught trespassing, you could easily go to jail. And I just can't be asked to go to jail in a foreign country.
I bet Japan, though, the prisons would be really modern and cool, actually.
Yeah, they'd be great.
Exactly like that.
Yeah.
And have you had any people kind of copy you, or individuals who've done some crazy things who just thought, oh God, what is going on here? No, that's not what I was hoping for.
So far, luckily, no one's killed themselves doing straight line missions, but I am waiting for that to happen. There have been people who have been copying me more recently. I don't mind them doing it, so I don't really see it as copying me. I don't call it that. I just call it as they've been influenced by me, and most of the time, and I'm flattered by it. I think it's great. I'm not bothered that anyone's copied my straight line mission. Most of the time, they nod their hat to me and say, obviously this was made famous by Geowizard, but I'm going to give it a go.
They're probably a fan, you'd assume.
Yeah, exactly. But there were two lads recently who successfully, this is the thing, they didn't nod their hat to me. All they did actually was, if anything, was rip me. But they, funnily enough, were the best competition I've had. So they're two young lads from Somerset or something, and they successfully crossed Scotland together albeit with a pretty comprehensive support crew that followed them round. But fair play to them, they did a great job at doing it. So now I officially have competition, which is spurring me on to do another one.
And they're from Somerset, so they probably speak farmer really, really well, and that's probably giving them a real advantage.
Yeah. Ooh-ar.
Exactly.
Funnily enough, they're the opposite. They're really posh. They're kind of.
They own Somerset. Oh, I see. Right.
They own Somerset, yeah. So it's pretty easy for them. No, they're not really
gets
posh.
You far. It's privilege. Is what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. They know how to speak to farmers. Get off my land. I think you'll find it's my land, actually.
Yeah. The language of money usually does it.
And who do you kind of see as an adventurer that you admire, or whose YouTube videos do you watch and think, yeah, that's what I'd like to do as well?
Do you know what? It sounds like an obvious one. I've always loved, over the years, I've always watched Bear Grylls and Ray Mears and people like that, because they were like the main ones on TV. I love their attitude towards adventure. But there's a guy on YouTube called Bo Miles. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, we've interviewed. Yeah, exactly, absolutely. Yeah, because that's what I was thinking. The stuff
he does a lot of running.
Yeah, so the stuff. Yeah, I was thinking the things that you were doing is very kind of similar to what the kind of challenges that he kind of does, and he has the same problems, of course. Constantly getting into trouble with running across people's land and stuff like that. Dressed normal, in a 1960s train driver's outfit or whatever, which normally diffuses the situation.
Something bizarre.
But because he does some really interesting challenges.
Yeah, so he's a guy who I discovered. I think I was pointed in his direction after I did my first mission across Wales. People obviously said, you got to check this guy out. And he's just someone who really shares my. Well, I'm flattering myself, but I think he really shares my outlook on adventure, like how you can literally have an adventure in your backyard, so to speak, and just follow a local river, because you just see things from such a different angle to what you're used to, that it's automatically an adventure. And I like the fact
it's like 1 mile an hour marathon.
1 mile an hour marathon. He recently he followed this dirty river, this repugnant river through Sydney. I've always wanted to do something like that. And he's again someone who doesn't mind being a bit mischievous, being on someone's land. Because at the end of the day, you're doing more good than bad.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. Like that, when people were kicking off about doing Scotland during lockdown, I thought, I get your angle, but first of all, we're not harming anyone. We're in the middle of nowhere, so we're not spreading the virus, really.
Yeah.
And, Bradley Walsh is in his ITV studio filming The Chase, and everyone's tuning in and watching that, and it's raising morale. The way I see it, well, this is my excuse anyway, is we're raising people's morale and we're getting them into the outdoors and the adventure, and doing more good for people's mental health than the half of these Instagrammers and people like that. So
was
I
the
don't
policeman not a fan of the chase then? Is that why? Did you explain that to him? And he was
That's
like,
it.
mate, I'm more countdown,
Yeah, you got it. You've worked it out. Yeah, no, he definitely wasn't a fan of us being there to begin with, but he warmed to us. But yeah,
amazing. Well, congratulations on some epic challenges and on
Thank you.
just making content that I think does inspire people to be a bit more adventurous.
I hope so. That's my main aim.
I think you reach people that wouldn't be reached otherwise by your Bear Grylls or your Ray Mears or which I think is hugely important for actually getting people involved in the outdoors. Could you see yourself becoming a patron of the National Trust or kind of getting involved in that side of things at some point?
Potentially. It's not something I'm thinking about just yet. My mum's always going on at me that I should be a presenter. I should be the next Matt Baker or something. And I have had the odd offer to make TV programs, but at the moment, I feel like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Keep doing what I love. With YouTube, I have complete control over what I'm doing. I can present things the way I want them to. And I think that shines through. Try and inspire people and make a bit of money as well.
And kind of any last tips for any budding YouTube adventurers out there of what are the key things to create a good video?
I'm no YouTube success guru, but for me, what has worked was, I think, one winning ingredient is obviously always to find a unique selling point. I think that really helps. I don't think you need that. I think you could still make it if you compensated in other ways, if you had a lot of character and people like your personality and you're passionate about what you do. I think you can just have those and you'd probably be all right. But I think if you can combine that with new, fresh ideas, I think, which is getting harder and harder as the years go by, because YouTube is, filling up with all these amazing things. But I think those would be my main ingredients. Be passionate, come across good on camera. At first, I was terrible on camera. I hated the sound of my voice. I thought narration sounded stupid. I thought all my mates were going to take the piss out of me. But after a while, if you want to do it, you'll do it, and you'll find your feet.
Amazing. Well, we've mentioned we obviously know your YouTube channel. You've mentioned the how to donate charity. Anything else you want to plug, or any ways in which people can follow you?
I'm on Patreon. I'm on YouTube. I am on. I've recently made TikTok, but I think I might be banned from there soon, just for uploading dangerous clips of me.
So there we are. If that doesn't persuade people to check out your TikTok account, I don't know what.
Yes, exactly. Unfortunately, all the dangerous clips were taken down. No plugging really. I've made an album. All my music on my videos I composed. Yeah, that's the only other thing I can think of. It's called 16-Bit Adventure. If you like Sega Mega Drive music, Nintendo music,
nice.
It's kind of like that sort of vibes.
Have you sent it to Charlie Brooker?
No, I haven't. Should I?
He would love it. Yeah, on Desert Island Discs. And if you think about his Screenwipe stuff and stuff like that, he's always narrating the music. And when he did his Desert Island Discs, he talked about some of the songs he chose were from games. And from he really respects the craft of composers who do compose for computer games and things like that. So yeah, you should ping a message.
Way. Yeah, that'd be amazing. Yeah, I totally agree with him. Some of the best music I've ever heard has been on games like Sonic the Hedgehog, Pokemon on the Game Boy. Yeah, no, I'll drop him an email.
At what point then were you finding you were losing your way, or you were having issues before running?
Pretty much after I left after I left school, I didn't go to uni. So in my young adult life, I was kind of, I had a lot of fun, but I also had a lot of potential that I wasn't fulfilling. I wanted to be a musician, and I was just procrastinating all the time. I was getting pissed every weekend. I was getting stoned. I was just anything to escape from what I was meant to be doing. And I think that's the case with so many young men. Definitely Russ would have probably talked about that.
Yeah.
Just distracting yourself, blinding yourself from what you should be doing. You don't often know what you're supposed to be doing. That's the problem. But I definitely, it took me a few years to kind of quit the bad habits. But when I did quit the bad habits, it was adventures and cycling and running that really, without those, I'd still be, I don't know where I'd be. But going to the park run every Saturday gave me a reason to get up. And as I said earlier, I'm like a dog with a bone. It was all about, can I beat last week's time? Can I beat last week's time? Until I was down to like 19 minutes. And in that process, you learn that that's your meaning in life, to challenge yourself. So it's can't recommend running enough to anyone. I mean, I'm sure your audience already know that it's good, but
did that then, that focus of trying to on one day run a really fast 5K then change your focus for the rest of the week?
I think just generally what it does to you is once you've done that park run and you've got a good time or you've done your best, it just like for the rest of that Saturday, you're like, well, I'm pleased with myself. I am content. I'm happy. I'm worth something. I'm not a useless bastard like I thought I was. Yeah, I'm proud of myself. And I think that lasts all week. Yeah. And I think, I mean, half the time I would ruin it by getting pissed afterwards. But the point is it's a slow process, and just bit by bit, step by step, you teach yourself, you train that muscle, don't you, in your head, the positive habits rather than the bad habits. And yeah.
So it's I guess in a way it feeds into confidence and self-worth and all those elements as well then.
Absolutely, the self-worth, just knowing that you can pick a challenge and do it is so powerful. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's and the more you do it, the stronger that muscle gets. And now I'm addicted. Like someone said to me, might have been Russ actually. I told him I was going to do this ultra marathon football thing, and he said, "Be careful, it is addictive." And I think I'm already thinking about the next ultra marathons to do, but it can't be a bad thing. I'd rather be addicted to that than, weed or alcohol or whatever other drug.
And is the addictiveness which element of it? Because it's always different for different people. Because some people it's the achievement, some people it's having the more long-term focus and having the ability to just build up to something and really kind of stretch your goals out. For other people, it's the having achieved, then telling the story and having the adulation and being able to, like, which part of it do you think it is that you potentially get addicted to?
I think the times, without the times, I never would have done it. The times, even though they're just numbers, the times is I don't know, like I've never actually formulated this. The time is what you're chasing, but that's not the addictive. What's addictive for me is, I guess it's both. I guess it's beating the time, but then it's also being in pain when you're running. I think this is what's become the most addictive thing is being in pain, two laps into a park run, and then teaching your brain to not give in to the thoughts that are telling you to slow down or give up. It's like that mastery of all your negative thoughts. think that's the most addictive thing, and just like reaching new levels of mastering pain, because nothing bothers you then.
Yeah.
Like nothing. If you go to the extreme, if you're someone who's like really, really unhealthy, smokes, drinks, is obese, if you get that person to run down the street, they'll be in so much pain, and they'll just give up instantly, and that's the worst thing. But on the other end of the spectrum, if you can just be a total master of anything uncomfortable, because you still feel the pain, it's just like mastering it, isn't it? And I find that really addictive, just almost enjoying the pain.
And do you think these challenges then, because you've mentioned how quite a few of them sometimes is mentally difficult and others physically difficult, do you think that's actually going to enable you to be a better runner?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. It all ties in, I think. It's all it's all adding up. It's all contributing to the to the cause. Yeah, I think so.
And actually, it's quite nice because we're often, I think a lot of our listeners get the sense, because of who we chat to, that success in running and like big achievements is just about the biggest distance milestone. But it's really nice to hear of actually almost being able to take control by something as simple as just a park run that everyone can do. Everyone can go out. It's every week.
Absolutely, a park run might only be 5K, but tell you what, it feels like an eternity when you when you do a fast first lap and you got to keep that pace up. Honestly, it takes real mental strength sometimes in a park run to keep up a fast pace, and that alone can do wonders. Yeah, it doesn't have to be an 80-mile ultramarathon where you never really get that out of breath. They're very different, aren't they?
Yeah, well, one's that dull nagging pain. The other one's like a stabbing in your eye.
Yeah, exactly. They're very different. One's aerobic and one's just like joint pain. Yeah.
And so, are you drawn to ultras and things like that now? Or
I'm really liking the idea of doing ultras now. Yeah, I don't quite know why. I think it's that they last a long time. So if you enjoy running, it's like you can run for longer. I don't know. It's that whole process of breaking it down in your head. Like, right, let's think about the 20-mile point, then the 60-mile point, breaking it down, and again, like mastering the whole mental side, like the strategy. I'm really interested in.
Because I'd love for you to do the run across to Newcastle without a ball and just see what you thought.
That'd be great.
Compare the two, kind of get a sense of which is harder.
That'd be great. Well, I've never done a long distance run that goes up where I'm running up hills. So I don't know how I would fare at that, but I'm well up for it. I think it'd be great.
Well, if you need a coach, then let us know. We know many people, and but also I'd be happily join you in Newcastle for a pint at Teignmouth or somewhere afterwards to celebrate.
Are you guys based in Newcastle?
No.
I was going to say
I'm London and Jody's down near Brighton. But,
okay.
I lived in Newcastle for a little bit, and it's a great place. It's a great city.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah. But I'm up for doing any ultras, so maybe we can schedule it where we do the same ultra one time.
Yeah. Once I'm not injured, which
well, that's never going to happen, then, is it? Like
some distant pipe dream. But,
what's the injury?
Adductor. Kind of, old age probably more than anything else. So,
oh man, I hope it clears up.
Cheers. Well, when it does, I'll get in touch, because there's a race called the Wall by Rat Race, which does a similar route that runs from one end to the other, and that by all means, go out and do it by yourself. But actually, having aid stations and everything, something quite nice about that.
I love that.
Yeah,
I'd prefer that, definitely.
Amazing. Well, congratulations! Now that we know that you've been successful.
Oh, thank you.
In your latest challenge. Good luck with raising lots of money. Hopefully it's now actually when you release it that the real money starts
Exactly.
to go in.
Yeah.
And
if people want to check out the video and drop a quid, it's all for great causes.
And if there's anything we can do as a community to help you in your future missions, then just let us know.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'll bear that in mind.
Our pleasure. Thanks so much, Tom.
It's been fun chatting. Thanks for having me.
Well, I didn't even realise Tom had all that relationship with running. Actually, I thought I got him on just to talk about the direct line stuff. I thought was interesting and would appeal to people who have done adventures themselves in their ultra running or just hiking. So
I can imagine something like kicking a football on an ultra marathon. I think it sounds like such a fun idea to start with until the reality of it actually hits. Like when you're kicking a football, you're normally kicking it, on a field, on a flat field, where it's thing. But anyone that's got a child who says, "Oh, like Libby says to like Hugo, oh, like we're going for a walk, or bring the ball with you," you're like, "Oh no, this is going to be a nightmare." Because he's gonna knock the ball. It's gonna roll down a hill. It's gonna go into a bush. He's gonna kick it. It's a nightmare doing anything with a ball that's not on a football pitch, not on a flat pitch or something like that.
Yeah.
Just the idea of that sounds awful.
But I actually love this little story at the end where that you finding your confidence, finding a bit more focus and self-belief just from having the ability to focus on like a park run each week. I think that's a really, really, really inspiring story.
The funny thing is, as we were going through that, I was constantly brought back to Bow Miles, and the fact is, like, just finding something about like where you are, or something that's seemingly mundane, but reframed in a way that turns it into an adventure. And I suppose the same thing is with parkrun, isn't it? Is that parkrun is an adventure every week. If you're trying to beat your previous time, it's horrific. It's a horrific, but also ultimately incredibly empowering and kind of joyful thing when you do beat your time. And what is it, 25-30 minutes on a Saturday morning, and that's it. Your whole week is it can be you can feel incredible for that weekend just for committing to something for that amount of time, which but it's awful. But it is awful. I mean, like we said, you could go out and run an 80 miler, or you could run a park run, and I would say I think it would feel easier to do the 80 miler than to do a park run. I mean, I don't know why I think it is easier to do an 80 miler, than it is to do a park run. Park run's awful.
Fairs people. Well, it's been a reasonably long recording, so we're gonna do a short summary now rather than our extensive discussions at the end. But if there's any guests that you'd like us to interview, like Tom, firstly, thanks Dan for suggesting Tom, and apologies it took so long to get him on. But are there any other guests that you'd like us to talk to? As with this one, it doesn't have to be spot on running. It can be something just slightly to the side that you think's got that kind of do-badder spirit to what they're doing. So just email me, David at badboyrunning.com. Other episodes like this that I think you enjoy. We mentioned the Bow Mile one. Yeah, that was great. That was a couple of years ago now, wasn't it? Probably need to revisit with him.
It feels ages ago, doesn't it? Like
and Anna McNuff springs to mind as well as a good episode where she did barefoot around the UK. She has I can't remember what her challenges were now. Ran around New Zealand. She saved someone from a car wreck in America while she was trying to run in every state or running across America. But she's just got super energy to her, actually, and her challenges are always so interesting. So that's a great one to listen to.
An obvious other one is Hardest Geezer. That complements this quite well, obviously.
Yeah, and his story was interesting about similar kind of stage of life. We're just a bit lost, not sure what to do, and kind of found redemption through adventure. Yeah, really good story. Or the talk with the running charity, Alex Eagle. We spoke to him, a dual episode with the Skid Row Marathon documentary maker. So that's a double charity one. Both so interesting. Please do rate and review. Really helps with the visibility of the podcast.
Yeah, if you want to join the discussion, head over to Facebook, answer 3 questions, and we'll let you into the Facebook group for the discussion. If you want to purchase merch, head to store.badboyrunning.com and you can purchase something there. And now that we know the secret to YouTubing is putting out content on a regular basis, regardless of its quality, you're probably someone watching this, of the thousands of subscribers.
One of the millions.
Millions of subscribers. So you're either a massive fan or you're going to troll us for something we've done. So, just decide which side you want to go on. But whatever you do, leave a comment and subscribe.
Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.